welcome to our show. Here we are where spirit meets story, truth and mystery with your host, Dr. Douglas James Cottrell. We are journeying together through the deeper meanings behind today's world events, ancient wisdom, and the quiet whispers of the divine. We're going to reflect, remember, and reconnect. If this is your first time with us, welcome to the family. Make sure to follow us and ring that bell, check those checks, and click on that link to subscribe wherever you're watching and listening from wherever you are in the world. This show isn't just a broadcast. It's a broadcast with intention, with spirit, and with love. Now, here is Douglas.
Hey, welcome everybody. It's good to see you again. You know, fall time's upon us and we're looking towards an early snowstorm up here my way in Canada. We have a great show for you tonight. In spite of that ominous warning here in the fall, we have the author of Lost in Time. Jack Bialik is here with us. We're going to talk a little bit about his amazing book, Lost in Time, and also the current events, what's going on. Lots of things are happening in the Middle East, possible, as close as we're going to get to a peace treaty, shall I call it, in Gaza. And hey, everybody's talking about the people in Gaza, about President Trump maybe getting a Pulitzer Prize. Wouldn't that be something? Well, let's find out. Let's explore that some more. But tonight we're going to talk about Lost in Time, and we're going to be here to give you a little bit of information about what you want to know. So I'm glad you're here tonight. We are getting popular on the internet, and I got to blow my own horn a little bit and say, you know, please subscribe and get your friends to come on the show and subscribe as well. Pass it around. We are here for you, my friends. And tonight, we're also going to ask your questions and take some of your questions in the chat, just like we last week. My good friend and co-host here, Larry Cruz, is just here with me tonight.
Hi.
And once again, it's great to have you on the show, Larry. I hope you've had a wonderful week.
Definitely, and I hope everyone else did too.
Well, you're off in California. It's got to be good. It's always good in California for sure. So,
That's right.
what do you think of that weather in, Mount Everest? Today in the news, hikers, mountain climbers were stranded because of the snowstorm on Mount Everest. I don't know, Larry, you look pretty athletic, but would you be into mountain climbing?
Why not? I mean, I only live this life right now, so might as well. But yeah.
Well, there are a lot of fanatics that don't mind climbing up to the highest possible height on our planet and then getting stuck in snow. It's a real disaster. It's a big rescue going on, and our heart goes out to those rescuers, first responders. I don't know if you call them first responders, but they had mountain cattle, and I saw on the news today, what the heck of a storm is that going to be? I asked the question today, I'll ask you, my friends out there, would you go mountain climbing? Would you aspire to go to the top of the world, up to the peak of Mount Everest? I don't know, Larry. I get a little dizzy when I get to the peak of a tall building, just like Superman, able to leap tall buildings in a single bone. That's not me, but there are people out there. My grandchildren, my granddaughter in particular, goes for that rock climbing stuff. You ever seen that?
Yes, I have.
I know you got children too. Well, when the granddaughter beat the grandson out. She just went right up to the top. I mean, she was this big at the top of that huge wall. It was so tall up there. And I'm grandpa down on there going like, are you having fun? Anyway, more serious in the news, this rescue efforts are underway right now on Mount Everest. The blizzard traps hundreds on Mount Everest as rescue teams race to save lives. This is pretty serious, although I'm making light of it. It is really bad. There are hundreds of trekkers who were escaping the blizzard that were struck in Everest in Tibet. That's got to be really trying. And, our heart goes out to people like that. I understand the thrill. I get it. But, I mean, my gosh, the world's changing so much. Mountain climbing, risk-taking, those things are, I could never understand bungee jumping. I don't know about you, Larry. What do you think? Did you ever try that bungee jumping stuff?
No, but I am always watching YouTube, and everyone else loves to do it on YouTube, so that's amazing.
Okay, well, I'd like to try that, jumping in the pool stuff. That's what I like to go for. There we go. Okay, so listen, folks, welcome to the show tonight. We have an extra special guest tonight, the author of Lost in Time. So we're going to go from the high heights of the Himalayas down to the Earth right here in the present moment. We're going to introduce Jack R. Bialik's perspective on the world. It was found on the move, having lived in, let's see, what is here, 9 different states by the age of 25, and visited 25 countries as diverse as India, the nations of Europe and Scandinavia and Central America. Jack developed a unique and expansive understanding of global cultures and systems. Hey, what about that? World traveler, our friend Jack. This early exposure to a variety of environments provided the foundation for a life dedicated to engineering, innovation, and thoughtful inquiry on how societies manage knowledge. This global outlook has paired with a rigorous technical education. Jack earned his Bachelor of Sciences in Electrical Engineering from the University of Kentucky, the great state of Kentucky, which prepared him for a distinguished professional career. He began his service working for the U.S. Air Force before transitioning to a 25-year tenure at Motorola's cell phone business. He later ran a boutique, is that right? Crypto mining business, leveraging his technical expertise to explore emerging technologies. What an amazing, talented fellow. The book, the work of art. It's called Lost in Time, a thorough blend of compelling storytelling and miraculous research. Lost in Time unravels the intricate tapestry of human civilization. Jack weaves together narratives of forgotten innovations, overlooked pioneers, and epic defining discoveries that have shaped the modern world. Welcome to the show, Jack. It's great to have you on here. You've got that book, I hope, handy. You can show people that amazing cover. It just, there it goes. It's dynamic, isn't it? So, how did you come up with the title Lost in Time or Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge? That's got to be an eye catcher, ear, ringing sort of title. That's just amazing. How did you come up with that, Jack?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I got a piece of paper. I wrote down 50 ideas.
Only
And
50?
I don't know, it was a lot. It was a lot. And, a lot of times ideas come to me when I'm in the shower or driving my car. I think it's when your mind isn't active, you get these pops of ideas. But at any rate, I wrote them all down and came up with this one, and I thought it was a catchy name. Uh, my original name that I had for the book was not, it was Why We Know Nothing. But
That's a double negative, isn't it? Does that mean we know everything?
Why We Know Nothing? I don't know.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
So,
Anyways, that's why we know nothing, and then it got to be lost in time, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
our forgotten and vanishing knowledge. So that's the other point is, this book's about knowledge we've forgotten or knowledge that has been destroyed. And how can you write about something that's forgotten and destroyed? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's we're going to ask you that question, right, Larry? How do you write about something that you don't know about or you've forgotten or, I mean, obviously you have, so explain that, Jack.
yeah, yeah. So what happened, and the other question I get all the time is, how did you come up with this idea? It was a moment of inspiration because I was watching, uh, I think it was the History Channel, and I saw a interesting fact. They had I just saw one today, just today. I just saw one. They did cranial surgery in 400 AD in Peru. You know, and I said, wow, they did cranial surgery in 400 BC or 400 AD. Wow, how can that be? And then I saw another fact, somewhere else. And pretty soon I just, well, you know what? We're doing this all the time. So if you start to look into it, you'll find there's a lot of examples of things where we did it in the past and then now we do it again. And we think it's current, we think it's new. We think chrome on bumpers or on vehicles is a new thing. And it's not, you know. So so
Why is
many
that?
things are like that.
Why is that? Is that something
Well,
from the ancients? They had invented chrome coating?
well, we started our manufacturing processes. We started using chromium in manufacturing in the 1700s. And we used it more and more because chrome, the nice thing about chrome is it doesn't rust. I mean, steel will rust, but if they chrome plate it, it'll
Hmm.
last longer. And so they started using it on vehicles and that sort of thing. But
Did it come
ancient
from ancient times?
ancient China, they
Wow.
used it in swords in China, and they found swords that actually were still sharp. Now, if you find a sword from the Middle Ages, from the 1400s or 1500s that the knights all used, if you find one of those in the ground somewhere, it's destroyed. It's so rusted. They got pieces. They might have a handle. They might have a part of the blade, but very little of it. But the ancient Chinese had a way of using chromium in their swords that kept them sharp for 1,000 years.
Well, there are several people putting forward information about um, this is not the end result of our time since Noah, that we've progressed from Noah to now, that there have been times prior to the flood of the Noahan flood, if you will, the Ark of Noah's Ark and the animals and all that, that the world has been, destroyed several times, three or four times, according to Edgar Casey. So do you think maybe some of this technology, like think about it, what you just said, cranial surgery uh, from hundreds or thousands of years ago. I mean, there's the kind with the big broadsword that you would be doing some cranial surgery with, of which every operation was guaranteed to fail, I'm sure. Uh, Although, what's that saying? The operation was successful, the patient died. So, what do you think about that? I mean, some of this information that you've explored, obviously, to write a book, it's a pretty thick book. You've got a lot of interesting facts and stories to tell. So, do you think it's
Yeah.
possible that maybe those remembrances, some of these things we're finding, sort of survived world destruction and they're hidden away in tribal stories and things like that?
Well, so a couple of things. There are over 300 facts in my book. We just counted them. And little tidbits, snippets of information. And for sure, there has to be information left. So here's another interesting fact that, you know, time capsules that people bury and that sort of thing. I've got a whole chapter on time capsules. They get lost. I mean, after 60 years, there are time capsules we can't find. There's one in the White House that they have not been able to find. They redid the White House. Was it in the late 1700s, I think? And when they did that, they looked for the time capsules. There's one that George Washington put in there, and they couldn't find it. But at any rate, the problem with time capsules is they get lost.
Hmm.
So, and then we lose our knowledge. We like to keep it in libraries. There, of course, there's the big story of the Library of Alexandria that got destroyed. And, who knows what was in that library, but we destroy libraries all the time. So there's not a good way really to save knowledge. And so what happens is we lose it and then only to, rediscover it again because, you know, one example I like is toilets. We like toilets, it's pretty good. They're pretty useful.
Yeah.
And yet, in the Middle Ages, we didn't have toilets. I mean, the ancient Babylonians had toilets. The Romans had toilets. The the Middle Ages in Europe, they didn't have toilets. The sewage ran off the roof of houses. So, so there's a need, and we keep reinventing something to satisfy a need, and we just keep having to redo it again because we don't
Well,
have a good memory system.
I think it was Benjamin Franklin or one of the great inventors. He said, "We don't invent anything; we remember it.
Mm.
We're reinventing it," and sort of holds up. Reflecting on your journey, what has been the most surprising or enlightening discovery you've made about human knowledge and its preservation?
Mm. Yeah, wow. There's been a lot of aha moments, you know.
Give us.
Uh, you're just astounded. So, um, I'll say just, finding these has been uh, kind of fun. You say, wow, there's another one that popped up. Yeah, because the cranial surgery was the one that was really interesting to me. I just saw that recently. And, the interesting thing about the cranial surgery is when they started doing them in the year 400, they were only 40% successful. And by the time they got to the 1700s, I think it was 1700s when they stopped doing them, they were 90% successful. Now you may ask or may think, how do you know they were 40% effective, successful, and then later 90%, you know? But they know because they looked at the skulls and the if the person lived, the skull, the bone would grow back over part of the plate they would put in the skull. So the cranial surgery is, your skull and your cranium, and so that plate would grow back. The bone would grow back over the top of the gold plate they would put in there. And if the person died, then it wouldn't grow back. So they knew that person wasn't successful. So yeah, it's just amazing all these different findings.
I
Wow,
wondered.
Jack.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Douglas, but that's amazing. And something I thought about when you mentioned that libraries, like they're kind of disappearing now, and people are not usually buying books anymore. It's usually now in electronic forms. We save it in some data, some Google Drive or something. It's like we're trying to preserve knowledge now in our own form, but is it really going to be preserved in the future?
Yeah.
If it's constantly disappearing? I think that's an interesting question. I'd like to ask what your thoughts about that is.
Yeah. Well, the the techniques we use to save information on are usually developed because of a need and usually have to do with cost. So, you know, a business will develop something because it's cost effective. Maybe it's cheaper, or maybe they can put more information on a single thing. But is it any good? Floppy disks, if you remember those, those only last, I don't know, 10, 20 years or something, and then they get brittle and dry and they crack and fall apart. Or videotape, VCR tape, it doesn't last that long. And so we don't think about how to make the data stay longer. We just think about how can we make something that is useful today, you know, and use it tomorrow. So,
Well, everything's stored on the cloud, and there are theories people have put forward about having a big magnetic pulse. If there's an explosion or a nuclear explosion, that magnetic pulse is going to wipe out all of the electronically saved information. Have you found anything about that, Jack, in your researches?
yeah, I have. There has been large EMPs from the sun, electromagnetic pulses, in the 1800s, was it? Yeah, I think they had that when they had telegraph machines, telegraph. They, they do Morse code. Um, but at any rate, they had a big EMP come from the sun, and it just energized all the wires, and zapped everything. you know. And so, could something like that happen today? Who knows that you could get one from a atomic bomb, an atomic blast.
Yeah, well, there goes the iCloud with all the information. I had a vision where there was a bicycle chain in the cloud and there was a padlock and they were coming together. So I predicted before that what if the iCloud gets locked up? There goes that information, just as Larry was asking, and poof, it's gone. So,
Yes.
doing skull operations, I can just see some guy with a stone axe and a chisel. No, it couldn't have been like that. They must have had drills or something. They must have had all kinds of alcohol, anesthetic stuff, maybe put the old piece of wood through the mouth so the person could bite on it. Well, all these images are conjured up here. But when you look at this ancient knowledge, when you look back, I mean, what kind? Give us some really good meaty stuff here. You've been all over the place, and so tell us something we don't know.
Well, let's see. Where can I start?
How about money? You know,
Talk about, oh, money. Let's see. What do we have
with
on money?
money in the old days, wealth. How did they carry that around? Portable property, portable wealth.
Yeah, I
Okay,
don't have.
well, I'm just throwing things out here.
Yeah, well, here's one thing interesting they did with money in ancient Rome in the year 100 BC. They had a vending machine.
What?
Yeah, had a vending machine. And you could take your Roman coin and put it in the vending machine, and it would dispense holy water at temples. And they had one advanced uh, model, I understand, that they had a idol up on the wall, maybe made out of concrete or something, and they would you'd put the coin in, and then the device would uh, put steam out, and it would make the idol look like it was crying.
Well,
You know,
vending machines in holy temples back in the days of Rome.
you know.
Now that's something we didn't know. Wow. What would you give, professionals who are attempting to research like you? This must have taken you a long time, Jack, to find this out. So what would you give people who want to get into the field of exploring forgotten time and, not the conspiracy theory stuff. We're talking about ancient aliens, maybe. We're talking about worlds in collision. We're talking about just ordinary things like, how did we survive? People wonder, how did people live 100 years ago? You know,
Yeah. Well, that question comes to my mind a lot. I wonder, what did they say when they got up? What did they have for breakfast? How did they wash themselves, or what did they do, How
what
did
you
they
find,
keep their teeth clean?
what did you find out?
Still working on that, but
I would think you just bite into a piece of raw meat, wiggle the meat back and forth. There you are. Your teeth are cleaned. I don't know.
probably made some kind of toothpicks or something. But they did have drills. I know they had some kind of drill sort of thing that they would use, but I don't know what they would fill the tooth with. But um, you know, a lot of these things, the ancient cataract surgery is the one that really surprises me. Cataract surgery, you know what that is? That's where your lens of your eye, your cornea gets cloudy as you get older. It can get cloudy. And today, what we do is we go in there and we'll take it out and we'll put in a new one uh, and replace that cornea. Well, now we've come a long way because we started doing that in the 1700s. Now the cornea has a unique property in that your eyelid is the most sensitive part of your body. It has more nerve endings than any other part of your body per square inch. And you know that because if you get a hair in your eye, you go nuts, right? or a piece of dust. I mean, you can't wait to get it out of there. And that's because your eye is so sensitive. Now, in order to get your cornea out or your lens out, in the 1700s, they would tie a person to a chair. Sorry, Douglas, they would tie a person to a chair and they would have a strong man hold you while they took your cornea out until they figured out they could use, I think they used cocaine drops or something they would put in their eye to deaden it. Or maybe they put the cocaine drops in their mouth. I'm not sure. Maybe both. But, it took a while. But that's what we know of as cataract surgery. But back in ancient days, so in 800 BC, there was a doctor in India who did cataract surgery. And he did it slightly different. It was called a couching procedure. But they did it in 800 BC. And you may think that's astounding, except that isn't the first time we did cataract surgery. We did cataract surgery in 2000 BC. They have the Ebers papyrus, they have that shows them doing cataract surgery in ancient Egypt. So, like I say, we do something and then we lose the knowledge, then we get it again, then we lose it again, then we get it again, and we keep relearning.
Well, I guess it gets down to necessity. I mean, people have cataract problems because it's a human issue, and as you get older, as you say, your eyes get cloudier. But to bring the whole new meaning to, we can do this the easy way or the hard way.
Yeah.
And I would think, depending on when you were born in the world, wow, you had to be a tough character. You say, no, it's okay. I'll have the cane. I'll just keep walking and stumbling along. Thank you. I don't need the big guy holding me down. Still,
running into walls or whatever. Yeah.
So how about mathematics? I mean, we go back to China and we have the abacus sport, and we have, and we go to the Ottoman Empire. They invented the zero geometrical formulas. I mean, and then they were sort of quietly migrated into Europe, and people discovered, zero, but really it goes back to the Ottoman Empire, which who knows how long before that. So what about mathematics, and what would you dig up in time about that?
Yeah, well, zero is an interesting number because zero has come and gone. We, over the years, over the ages, we've used zero and then we've lost zero.
We did?
Oh, yeah. Well, think about it. Roman numerals. Give me a zero in Roman numerals.
Nope. You can get an X, so we know that's where Mr. Musk came up with that X from Roman numerals. I know that. Some wise old man told me, no, you're right. There is no zero in Roman numerals.
There is no zero in Roman numerals. So they didn't really, they must have had a concept of nothing, but they didn't have a representation for it. And it wasn't until they got to, I'm trying to remember, I think it was the 1400s or something, when they were doing a lot of shipping of materials with ships and keeping track of it in logs and that sort of thing, that they really had started using the number zero. And that's in, European sense. You're right. I mean, it was a concept in other languages and other cultures had the zero, but zero has come and gone. I think several times.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk to somebody, but zero is really nothing. Yeah, I got that. And so what? But it's I like that number 1,000,000,000. That's when it starts to mean things. But as a placeholder, it just doesn't make sense. Are you 1 year old when you're born, or do you live a whole year and then you're 1 year, but you're already a year old? But they say that's your first birthday, but you're really from year one birthday to year two. It's your they say you're 1 year old, but no, you're 1 year old and, 2 months, 5 months, 6 months. So you're into your second year. I've had debates with people that think they're pretty smart. They say, when you're born, that's year one. And they
Well,
say, well,
that is confusing if you go to England and you're in an elevator
what?
and well, the the first floor is zero. The next floor is one.
I think that's the same in Francais.
It might be, yeah, yeah. I think they do that.
Well, so there you go. There's that conflict of just how amazing zero is. So, when we talked about brain operations, we talk about eyesight, we talked about money. So, what's the most amazing fact you found that we've lost knowledge? I mean, that's a pretty amazing title, lost in time and lost knowledge. Do you find things are like, I don't know, they come about in cycles, they come about in time. I know we all do it. We say something like, everybody does this. Larry, my friends, if you're out there, send Jack a question in the chat and ask him about something. Push him a little bit. He's the expert here with the book Lost in Time. So ask him a question about something like, did Spock really come from the planet Vulcan? Okay, we have to know that for sure. But and besides from that, but if you think back when somebody says they're reflecting on something that happened, they say, yeah, it was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Well,
Well, it was about 8 or 9 years ago. Well, what was it, 8 or 9? Actually, they mean somewhere between 7 and 10, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, if we can't remember what happened 3 years ago or 5 years ago, oh my God, how are we supposed to expect what happened? Tell me, Jack, has anybody ever put forward, just jumped in my head now, did anybody ever come forward? Did you find any inkling about where we came from? Humans, where do we come from? I mean, we're lost in time. Nobody can actually tell us how we started the place, right? So, did you get anything in your researches on that?
No, I haven't seen any definitive things on that.
I doubted you would find something definitive, but I mean, you must have heard a lot of stories. Yeah, we came from Alpha Centauria. We came from Beta. We're from Palladians. I've heard people tell me that before, but all five races came into the world apparently at the same time. Did you do any research on that kind of stuff, or is that still yet to be in your next book?
Yeah, I have not. I haven't investigated that. So most everything that is in my book, it's uh, heavily documented. So I tried to make sure that people could look. So you think, oh, that's incredible. That's impossible. So you can look it up. It's all there. There's references for
Can you
everything.
give us an example of some of those really juicy things that you found out about?
Well, I can tell you about something I didn't find out about.
Okay, that goes along with the title.
Well, no, here, this is interesting. So, I've done a lot of project management in my background, and
Mhm.
I started thinking about putting a project plan together to build a pyramid. Maybe, maybe
Wow.
make a pyramid like they have in Giza, one of the Great Pyramids. And so I started doing some calculations as to how to put one of those together. And so it depends on the source, but they say maybe this is what I've read. A lot of the sources say that it took 20 years to build one of those, and it's got 2.3 million stones. So I just did some rough calculations and say, okay, so if it took 20 years and it's 2.3 million stones, how many stones do you have to put down every day? How many do you have to put down a year? How many do you have to put down a day? How many do you have to put down an hour? Well, you have to lay one 3-ton or bigger stone every 2.3 minutes in order to put one of those together. And you just can't set it down. You gotta, make sure everything is perfectly level, and those pyramids are built within, they're very high precision on how those things are leveled out. And so, you know, I think, well, some people argue that it's, aliens that built them. Um, but I would argue that we probably had some technology that helped us build those that we don't know about. We forgot, we lost it. We probably blew ourselves up, or who knows what happened to it. Buried it somewhere, and somebody forgot where it was buried. And and the thing about it is, really, if you do the calculations, it's not the laying of the stones that's impressive. It's the cutting of the rock, you know, the cutting of the stones that they used um, to make those pyramids. That would be a challenge today. It would be extremely difficult to cut that many stones, and with that kind of precision also.
Yeah, I've seen some reports, Jack, where people say that those stones made out of granite were actually melted. They became liquid and they were then put into forms or, like concrete almost. And that's how they got uh, those huge compartments or sarcophagus for bulls and whatever down into the basement of the pyramids or in these chambers. But again, that goes to we don't know what we're talking about. We can only speculate. But I got to compliment you. I mean, I don't know anybody else that thought to say, okay, there it is. And we can calculate how many blocks are there. And now, how long would it take to put down one of those massive stones every 2 or 3 minutes? That's a stretch of the imagination. Levitation, transportation, like uh, I saw one theory where they had giants. We have. Have you researched any giants in your book? I mean, in our
Oh,
history.
yeah,
Well,
no, I haven't touched on giants.
yeah, well, there was some theory that there were these giants that used to work on the pyramids, and they could pick up a boulder, like a one of those 2-ton blocks, and put it in place. I mean, I'm going off on the deep end here, but there's got to be people out there right now listening to you, and they want to get your book, Lost in Time and Forgotten Knowledge. What would you encourage them or coach them on how to start on that?
Oh, yeah, the best way is just look up my name right on Amazon. I'm on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. Um, just type in Jack R. Bialik, and you'll my book comes right up.
Okay, so they should start with reading your book and then getting intrigued with it. How many facts are in that book, did you say?
Over 300.
And these are
And
things that
Jack,
we
Yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah, Larry.
is your book available also on Kindle for
It is.
downloading?
Mhm.
Nice.
Yeah, it's hardback, paperback, and ebook. Yeah.
Is there anybody out there want to ask Jack a question in the chat here tonight? Now is your chance.
Let's.
I'm kind of racking my brain and saying, um, trying to ask you a question that you did study and some of the most intriguing things, but it all comes down to how we treated each other. I mean, what was the forgotten knowledge about how the ancient civilizations, like Atlantis or Lemuria? Did you do any research on that?
I didn't. Although I am interested in that, but I didn't. I didn't go into that. I basically kept it about, you know, things that had been found. Well, in order to say that it was lost and found, I had to make sure it was found first.
Oh,
So,
okay.
maybe I might, my next book might be about things that were lost and never found, which might be another interesting concept. I mean, how
That
could you
would
write
that would be a perfect book that could, you know,
lost,
the
lost
things
and
we
found?
did find and then the things we never found, and that's even better. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, give us some really, our audience is chomping at the bit here to, what don't we know, Jack? Give us some of that.
Well, Well, there's a lot of things we don't know, and there's a lot of examples like that. So, I done the one with the pyramids. We don't know how they were built. I mean, there's a lot of conjecture. There's a lot of different theories, including, some guys think that they did it with water. Different ways that that was built, but nobody knows exactly how it was built. We have the same thing with the crystal skulls. You may have heard about those. They found several of those, that were in, they were in South America. I think they found some of those in other parts of the world.
What does that mean, Jack? What's a crystal skull?
It's a skull that's made out of crystal stone that's been, honed down and made in the shape of a skull. And they have some in the libraries. I think there's one in the British Library. They have several of them that they found.
Are
That
those crystal skulls that nobody could make today?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's another example. Uh, and I always like my dodecahedron. This is a um, 12-sided. It's made out of bronze. They found 100 of these or so in England, in Europe, and each side. So it's 12-sided. That's what dodecahedron means, 12 sides, and each side has a hole, and each hole is a different size. You can see that one's small, that one's big, um, and they don't know what these were for. When I say they don't know, there's a lot of conjecture, but there's no written or recorded use for these. There's no pictures. Nobody drew a picture of one. No one wrote something on a piece of paper or papyrus or on a stone. Uh, there's no known use for these, and there's a lot of theories as to what they were for. Um, I had one friend that said, well, there's 12 sides and there's 12 months of the year, and each one has a different size. So maybe it has something to do with the months of the year. But anyway, there's another thing we don't know.
Is that a replica or is that a real one?
Yeah, this is a replica. I got it on Pinterest. This one's plastic, but the real ones are made out of bronze.
And there's
It-
hundreds of them, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What
Found
do
a
you
lot
think,
of
Larry? Does that look like something out of a shotgun in the old days?
Wow, yeah, totally.
Oh, could you put that in a cannon and launch that?
Would have all kinds of phosphorus stuff inside that would burn up when it got to wherever. I don't know. That's an amazing. What's it called again, Jack?
A
Yeah.
dodecahedron.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
about a 12-sided round thing with knobs on it? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, it's got these knobs. So it was probably difficult to manufacture as well. I mean, and they believe they were used in the year 100 to about the year 300. So, it's not recent, you know, but yeah. So it's just kind of an interesting.
well, it goes to your book about lost in time and the our forgotten and vanishing knowledge. I mean, here you have something in your hand. Nobody can definitively say this is what it was. You know, so again, how did you come up with this idea in the book in the first place?
Well, it was a moment of inspiration,
Something in the privacy of your own little commode. You were
Yeah, there was
thinking,
nothing. Yeah, this time I wasn't driving my car, but I might have been in the shower. But I know I was watching TV, and I just saw these different, different things come up, different technologies or techniques. Um, uh, I'm working on my next book. I'm thinking of talking more about maybe musical instruments. There's musical instruments they know about that,
yeah, where the heck did they come from? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, that were lost. And a lot of music, I don't think we even know what the music was. I know there's places, well, I know like in the Bible, there's songs, and but we don't know what it sounded like or what it was played on. Maybe we might have some ideas on what it was played on, but uh, uh, you know, it, today we have sheet music to record it, so we kind of know how it's done.
well, I remember you just go down to the ocean and you got one of those little seashells down there and you can blow in it. or to maybe hold it up to your ear and you can hear some sounds in there. I mean, there goes my musical career, you know. But so what kind of steps do you think people can take? And when you're sitting there, I mean, everybody I'm sure sits there and they wonder like, how the heck did that happen, or where did that come from? That curiosity. You look up in the sky and somebody says, "Why is the sky blue?" I don't know. How come it goes red sometimes and green other times? Things like that. There's so much that we don't know. So, your career has spent a lot of time, working with the Air Force and, as an engineer and Motorola cell phone business. How have these roles influenced you think?
Yeah. Well, I think always being creative and thinking, you know. So when you would see things, you try to put things together into some kind of something that makes sense, makes sense to you, and my inspiration for the book really is to try to get people just to think about it. Like, I think just thinking about these topics may make you think about something a little bit differently if you have an opportunity to do something. Um, People, being humble, particularly with new ideas. It's not bad to use an old idea. You know, um, there's so many examples of, you know, where uh, information has been lost because, well, maybe the family kept the information and didn't share it with others, and then the family disappeared, and we don't know how they made seamless celestial globes in the 13 and 1400s. We don't know how they did it. We can't make seamless globes out of metal today. So the way we make metal globes today is we make two halves, we put them together, we weld it, and then sand it down. But a family in Lahore, India, knew how to make seamless ones, which, you know, we don't know how they made them. But we've got them. We've got their globes all in the libraries, and we've x-rayed them, so we know they're hollow and they're metal, and they were not welded. So,
This idea pops in my mind. First, you get a big ball of wax, get it round, then you pour molten metal all over it, and the wax will make. Oh no, that won't work. The wax.
it's not going to work. Yeah,
Darn, here it goes.
that's the trick, How do you do that? Because whatever you put inside of it has to be able to withhold the heat, but then how do you get it out?
Well, I see sand inside it when you talk. Like
Yeah, well,
a ball of sand, and then some little kid has to poke a hole in it and shake it for a couple of months, and then all the sand comes out. I'm making this up, folks.
maybe. That's a good idea.
Well, that comes from somebody once asked me, when they had those big pillars in different parts of the world in temples, especially in Egypt, and they're all hand carved all the way from the top to the bottom, and they're huge. And somebody said that, did they have ladders or, did they have scaffolding? I said, no, they had sand. They went, what? I said, yeah, you just make a sandbox. You have this pillar and you go up to the top, you stand on the sand, do the carving, take some sand at the bottom, it comes down, and just repeat it. You're carving the stones and you come down. And then eventually all the sand is gone from the bottom and you have this perfectly uh, carved pillar up to the standards of the building inspector at the time. He was the guy with the whip and the big sword, and so you had to make sure you got the thing done on time. But I mean, just common sense. But if you don't think about that, or maybe that could be completely wrong too, my friends. It intrigues you to think, how do people do that? I mean, how did people come up with a cotton gin, or how did people come up with a sewing machine? You know, how did people come up with catching those big dinosaurs and buffalo and things like that? It's got to be amazing when your mind goes back. But you know, if you could have a conversation with a historical figure, Jack, who would it be and what would you ask?
Wow. Hmm. I think there
I'd like
might
to
be a
say,
few.
I'll give you time to think. Moses, what are you doing up there? You've been up there for 40 days. We hear these noises, and there's you having a party. I'm making fun, and I don't mean to offend anybody, but like, okay, I give you a few moments to. If you had a historical figure, who would it be? What would
Well,
you
that,
want to
that would be interesting. How are those tablets made? You know, what were they made out of? That would be interesting.
Not Tylenol, that's for sure. So,
And I
now,
have a question for you, Jack.
okay,
Um,
go
in
ahead.
engaging in this research and writing this book, did you interview, individuals that study this? And what was so fascinating about this information that you found? Like, did you go there in person? Tell me about that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I haven't been able to travel to any of these places, although I think I might be doing that for my next book. We're talking about possibly doing that. But I did interview people. The most interesting interview, well, one of the interesting interviews I had was with a gentleman who was the head curator at the Internet Museum in San Francisco. And what was interesting in that interview was that they have all the original, computers, like the original computer, IBM XT, and the original Apple computers and all those things. And he says, so I asked him about the media and that sort of thing. They use the floppy disks or whatever, and he says, well, there's a lot of problems with those, and especially if you get old ones, they're just not readable or anything. So what they do is they take their computer programs that those computers use and they print them on paper so that they can save them for a longer time. It's kind of like going backwards. you know, you're going from um, electronic media to paper. So,
Well, Jack, we've gone from vinyl records to digital to CDs back to some sort of hybrid digital back to vinyl.
yeah.
I mean, I should have kept those 45s I had as a kid. When I got married, I gave them to my sisters. They didn't appreciate it at all. I was being, well, I'm not a teenager, and you guys are younger. I think I probably gave away my gold. I mean, it would have been nice to have those 45. Did they call them 45 still, Jack? Or 78s now? Those big ones? What do they call them?
No, those they have LPs. They're the big ones. They're
LPs.
yeah,
What's LP stand for?
long playing.
Long play, of course. Okay, well, 78 meant, Larry, way before your time. You're such a young guy. I think that meant it went around 78 times a minute or a
Mm,
second. I don't know. I think a minute. And the 45s went around 45. The 45s were like CDs. And those were the ones you bought at the record store. They had the hottest hits, like the Chum Top 10 hit list. He used to go down, and every day you'd read on the list, She Loves You, number one. Okay. And then there would be something else, some other, group or whatever, the Beach Boys, stuff like that. And that was a big deal. You had the little transistor radio. Remember that, Jack? Used to hold it up to your ear.
yeah.
Oh, you were so cool if you had one of those radios. Radios. Now we have cell phones, but back then. And then if you had the boom box, that was the big one, right? And that would drive
Yeah.
everybody crazy on the subway and the bus. But there, I'm giving you lost knowledge there, Jack. That's for your next book. I mean, we've forgotten about that, right? So, but again, yeah, you didn't quite answer the question. Who would you go back in time? Who would you be your hero? Did you like to sit down? Socrates, Newton, Christ, Moses, Safia, not Satya, okay, Satya Baba, but I was thinking of some other, and they came into my mind, was thinking of a Zulu king um, in South Africa. They ruled the country. I mean, many countries, or at many times in the world, one person ruled the world. They were really bad people. Shaka Zulu was the man I was thinking of, the leader in South Africa, or Zulu tribe, I should say. So, I mean, bottom line is, who would you like to go back and say, hey, come here, let's have a coffee or a glass of wine, or let's sit down over this campfire with the big spit and the buffalo, whatever.
Yeah.
Giving you some
Well,
time, Jack. What do you?
thank you. There are a lot of choices on that, that's for sure. Um, yeah, because the ultimate knowledge, right? I would like to talk to Jesus. That would be incredible, of course, from a spiritual standpoint. Um, and also, there's a couple other people I would like to talk to as well. How about the guy that designed that pyramid? You know, it might be interesting to meet with him and talk to him, see what was on his mind.
Wasn't his name Ramses? I mean, didn't the pharaohs create the pyramids?
Yeah,
I don't think
maybe.
so.
Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. Well, they might have, you know, paid for it, but they didn't design it.
Well, the Rosicrucians have they go back in time and they talk about Amenhotep and different pharaohs and buildings back in the day, and that's got to be lost knowledge, right? I mean, how did they build those structures? Where did the Sphinx come from? People I've spoken to say all that damage around the Sphinx, that's water damage, meaning
Yeah.
the Sphinx was in a pool of water or in a river before. You know, I mean, basically, it's kind of like, Larry, have you ever had the opportunity in California where you're out in the country and you see an old shack somewhere and you drive up to it and you just a broken down old one room shack in the middle of nowhere and you're wondering who lived here?
Yeah, definitely. And I actually had those questions back in Virginia when I would go through like Suffolk, for example. It'd be a lot of homes that are not trees growing through them, bushes growing out. It's kind of like that. And I've wondered that same thing too. Like, who's lived here? It's interesting.
So, Jack, other than Jesus and the guy that built the pyramids, anybody else on your want to meet list?
Yeah, there's one other one, and that is the Emperor of China
The
in,
first emperor?
yeah,
Wow. I understand he's still in his mausoleum. It's like in a big pyramid that's been built or been buried, and underneath is a huge pool of mercury. You heard that?
yeah,
Why?
I sure have. Well, I don't know, but it's apparently booby trapped. I don't know if that's part of the booby trap or some other reason, but yeah. So it would be interesting to speak with him.
Well, I always wanted to get a hold of Indiana Jones or somebody like him and say, okay, you've been to all these mysterious places. Let's go down to the, what is it called, the Nasha lines and see those figures, carved in the stone or whatever. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. And that's why it's so important. A book like yours would have hundreds of facts in there, and giveaways for people to say, what we want to find out these things. But I mean, we've discussing things, Jack, that aren't in this book. They'll probably be in the next book. But the idea that the world's been destroyed at least 4 times, we're apparently going through the fifth destruction of the world, according to the late great Edgar Casey, a prophet in the 1940s. And so, you know, the biggest thing I would like to know, Jack, is where do thoughts come from, and where do they go?
Yeah.
Nobody can tell us that. Did you know that? I mean,
Yeah.
we can all make stuff up, but I I've done some research on this myself. Nobody knows. There's no psychoanalyst, no psychiatrist, no anybody that deals with the study of the mind. They shy away from that question.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
You didn't dig up anything like that, you know?
No.
Well,
That's
getting
very philosophical. So
well, I want to bring us all the way back to that guy sitting there and saying, "So, Ahab, come here. You're having headaches. I have a chisel and I have a hammer. I'm going to fix you." Who would have thought? You know, think of that, my friends. Somebody had to be the first. You know, somebody had to actually think, okay, we need to get into my relative's head or my buddy's head. Or maybe it was more like during battle and the
yeah.
brains came out and they thought, whoa, what's in there or something like that. Okay, bring over those slaves, let's find out, you know, whatever. But somebody had to be the first. And who would think that, you know, like maybe it was they had an arrow in their head and they had to go in and dig that out or something like that. I mean, these are things just, I'm not making it up. These are thoughts just popping in my head as we're talking. So, but yeah, Jack, you know, as we come towards the end of the story here, where can people get your book again, and how fast can they get it? There it
Yeah.
is.
You can get
Awesome.
it tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
It's on Amazon,
A little
Barnes and
higher.
Noble. Yeah. Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Um, yeah. It's paperback, hardback, and ebook. So,
Our forgotten and vanishing knowledge.
yep.
There we go.
Forgotten and Vanishing Knowledge.
Wow. Well, you know, it's an interesting title for sure, and the subject is endless. And I guess you're as you said, you want to provoke people into, you know, considering, looking back and considering what have we lost, and how to maintain the knowledge. I think I saw in your press kit about how do we maintain this knowledge? I mean, you know, if you go back to tribes in well, let's say Australia, they have the singing verses and, you know, like the history's gone down through oral means. We all know what that's like. You tell a story to one person and then another person, and then by the time it comes back, it's like not even close to the way it started out. So, got any tips on people and how they can serve maybe knowledge and information right now, even genealogy, if you want to know about your parents. I mean, Amazon, sorry, not Amazon, but Ancestry.com. I think that's amazing. And there are some religious groups that have the genealogy. The Bible's full of who begot who and stuff like that. It's important, don't you think, Jack? Maybe to understand where you came from or your ancestors.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. And there are resources, of course, like you mentioned. But um, yeah, there isn't a perfect answer, you know, today for how to save our knowledge. The only thing we can think about is what do we have that's still old. So I had a friend of mine. He texted me after he read my book, and he says, "So, are you trying to say we need to put everything in stone tablets?" You know?
That's a good point. They don't erode, they do hang around.
Yep, yep. You got those for a while, and papyrus is pretty, pretty good as well. But you know, I think the point is that we need to think about it. You know, we need to think about what we're doing and make sure that we're taking the proper steps and we're thoughtful about it. You know, I think today in general, we're not thoughtful about it at all. We just do whatever's cheapest, fastest, you know, makes the most money. That's it.
I think
You gotta,
Thank you for sharing that, Jack. I'm thinking about like how we take pictures every day, and they last a while, but then will they still be there in 100 years, in 200 years? I mean, we still have photos right now from back in what is it, like in the 1960s, 1910? But are they the actual photos or are they just copies of the old photos?
yeah,
I think it's
well,
interesting to think about.
talk about, like DVDs, you know,
That's right.
these won't last forever. I mean, they've done some tests now. It's been hard to determine, but 30, 40 years. I mean, the pits inside there will oxidize and you won't be able to read them anymore. So, there isn't a perfect way to do it, you know. And we haven't found any in the libraries. I know there is some chatter about ancient libraries in different parts of the world, maybe around the in Egypt and that sort of thing. But nobody's found one. You know, we we haven't seen it. We haven't been able to find the information. And maybe it's good. I mean, something happened to them. They ended up losing their own uh, technology and so on. So that's not really the answer to mankind's problems, is
Mm.
technology, So if it was, it would have solved it whenever we had those techniques. But so,
Well, I kind of draw a parallel picking up on what Larry said. Uh, we take a lot of pictures or photos on our cell cameras or cell phones, hundreds. Do we ever go back and look at them? Not really. We look at the occasional one, right? And so then fast forward to we have all these museums and we have these places where documents are stored. The Vatican, for instance, there are Buddhist temples with leather bound books in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages and books. Do we ever go through them and look back in history? Not really. I saw a documentary on something like this where every now and then people will go in and they'll open up a big leather bound book. It's like 400 or 500 years old, and there's some ancient wisdom right there. So it's human nature. We like to collect and preserve it. But then the second part of that, Jack, and I think that may be what you're trying to get across to people, is that, we can't let this vanishing knowledge erode and disappear. We need to cherish it and value it or see it as important. What do you think? You're muted a bit.
yeah, sorry. Yeah, for sure. Uh, Keeping the knowledge and passing it on to our children or families and making sure that they can live smarter and better than we can.
Yeah, but the younger generation, Jack, they already think they're smart. Just
Well,
like we did when we were younger, like so.
yeah,
But, you know,
I, I do talk a lot about being humble, humility uh, in here.
for
So,
example,
yeah, being humble about learning from others. You know, I, maybe I do know a good way of doing it, but maybe, my dad knew a good way of doing it, or whatever, another person or whatever, and we need to just think about it and think about the merits of what each person does on their own accord, and not
yeah,
thinking we know all the answers.
I think that's wise, Jack. Everybody, uh, when we approach things because we've done it before, we've learned that the way we would approach something now because we've had experience is the best way because we've had the trial and error, so we know it's the best way. And then, of course, you're showing somebody, and they're going like, "No, I don't think so." And they have to go out and they have to go through the trial and errors. Like there's esoteric knowledge and there is experiential knowledge, and the experiential knowledge is hands-on. That's the best as far as I'm concerned. But like if you're wise and you listen to people, you can learn just by watching and observing somebody. So you
Yeah.
don't have to go through the 10 steps of making mistakes. You can actually do it right out of the can. So, but anyway, so
Well,
people,
we have that in business. It's called NIH, not invented here. So if it's not invented here, we don't want it, you know.
oh gosh,
Well,
I never, I'm going
Larry
to remember.
Ed, I think he
Write
knows what I'm
that down.
talking about.
NIH. There's some ancient knowledge right there that is vanishing right before our eyes. So everybody, take care about that one. So Jack, you've lived some years, of course, and you got this book, Lost in Time. For people listening to us, and I hope somebody's going to ask some questions in the chat if they'd like to. Uh, what's your one word of wisdom for people tonight that you've gained? What did you, at the end of writing your book, what wisdom did you come to? What conclusions?
Yeah, I think we've already touched on it. I think it's humility. Be humble about what you think. Especially if you're going to do something. Don't be afraid to use somebody else's, methods or knowledge, or, you know, be humble about how you approach things. Your idea isn't always the best. Maybe not, but do take that into account. Other people's thoughts.
Yeah, it's okay to give somebody credit. You know, you say, yeah, my friend Les, he paints the house with his left hand on the left side of the house and the right hand with the right hand on the house. And you go like, that doesn't make sense. Yeah, but it works for him. Ha, ha, ha. So, uh, it's amazing to see how people cope. And I guess looking at your title, like Lost in Time. Think about it, my friends. This is a good book. Jack has been very nice in sharing a few of the amazing facts that he's found out. But if any of them are like the one about somebody doing cranial surgery, hey, I'll step up. There's got to be a lot of wisdom there, Jack. It just, how do we find it? Where do we get it?
Yep.
So, okay, so we haven't had a break yet. Maybe we can, Oz, take a break, and we'll come back and summarize the show. We'll be right back. If Oz can put on a little break here, we'll be right back.
All right.
Come on, Oz, where are you?
I think
Larry's been jumping around, changing backgrounds on us all night long.
Yep. That's all I got right now.
Yeah.
We'll do this.
Nice Coca-Cola bottle collection you have there.
Are you searching for clarity, guidance, and peace of mind? For nearly 50 years, Douglas James Cottrell has used his intuitive abilities to help people from all walks of life overcome challenges and make informed choices. During his clairvoyant consultations, Douglas helps you uncover the root causes of life's challenges, whether in relationships, health, or finances. He offers insights into your future and practical guidance to empower your decisions today. Available by phone, Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime, Douglas's consultations fit your schedule and lifestyle. Heal, evolve, be the person you were born to be. Book your clairvoyant consultation today with Dr. Douglas James Cottrell.
Well, welcome back, Larry. So did you learn something from Jack about ancient civilizations?
Yes, and even as he was speaking, I was having thoughts coming in. Like, I had one, for example, like when Pompeii happened, for example. I do remember watching a show where they talked about how this person wrote his personal account of seeing Pompeii in, what is it, Mount Vesuvius at the time, I believe, blowing up, and what it did. And I have a question. What did he see aside from what he wrote? Like, I want to see what he saw. So just going back in time and just knowing those kinds of stuff is interesting to ask about.
Well, when I see things going on in previous events, either old newsreels or something, I just wonder, could I go back there and say something to them? Like, you know what I mean? Like some invention, or how to pump water, or how to purify water, or something like that. So I see that, and you can see the evolution. We go ever so slowly, and I think that's the main thing about people. We're in a hurry. We want to just keep going, and we don't take time to reflect or talk to each other. And sitting down with somebody who's a little older, who has been down that same path, you know what, my friends, they might just know something that you don't know. I remember once saying to my father, you know, I have my friends. Whatever we were talking about, I was being, you know, a teenager. And he said, yeah, you have your friends. You're going to find out. Where are my friends today? God bless them wherever they are. But your friends are only there for a little teeny tiny bit. Your family is forever. And part of the spiritual journey is to find out who you are in relationship to your family. And you know, the thing about families, Larry, is that there's no sugar coating. You go into your family and you say something, they give it to you. Boom, both barrels. at
That's
least,
right.
at least in my family and a lot of people I know. So there's no sugar coating. So the thing about dealing with people and families is dealing with the truth, and you know you have to find your way in your family, and that helps you find your way in the world. So as we move through this time, you know you know, it's an interesting journey, is it not? But this book that Jack has written, called um, you know, the hidden knowledge, and you know what we don't know, that should be something that we should all take into consideration. It come to mind, there was a man who used to own uh, a manufacturing plant, and what he did was it involved silver, and he was doing something with the silver, and there was a lot of waste left over. And so he had a fellow come along who would take this shale or waste or whatever it was, and he would pay him $20 a ton or something. And so it was pretty expensive. And the businessman thought, well, why am I paying this man to take this stuff away? We'll just bury it in the back lot. And so they approached the man, or the man came for his delivery, said, next week, we're canceling your contract. We don't want to do this anymore. And the man said, well, no, it's okay. I'll take this stuff away for free. And the businessman said, for free? You know, like, that's a considerable amount of money you're giving up. And
Right.
so he said, no, we'll just keep burying it in the back there. Don't worry about it. And then the man offered to pay for it. He said, well, I'll give you $5 a ton to take it away. Turns out that there was silver trailings in the junk, if you will, the residue, of which the man would go back to wherever he was at his place, and he would put it through the mixture, and he would extract the trailings of the silver, or tailings, whatever it's called. And so the man was making a small fortune.
Wow.
So the man who was in the first manufacturing plant found out about this, and so he started to go through the process of reclaiming the silver that was in there. And so he had a bar of silver on his desk. And this was an interview I was watching. And the man said, so every time I look down at my desk, I see that piece of silver, and it reminds me of what I don't know. And so, my friends, it's the moral of the story is, you know, Jack's book is an amazing book, and it's, you know, lost in time, you know, and we need to preserve that knowledge. And I can only encourage you to do so, but you know, like I just, my mind's just going like in circles like this. So back and forth. So as we come towards the end of the show, do you have anybody in the chat, Larry? Has Oz put anybody up in the chat for questions tonight?
No, I don't see any right now.
Okay. Well, next week, coming up in the very near future, we have Richard M. Anderson. He's Outbound, Meta Mars Outbound, Islands in the Void, The Evolution of Life, Big Bang to Space Colonies. He has a triple feature books. I have a couple of them here. And he's going to be coming on the show here in the next week or two. And you can look forward to talking to this man who has really studied a lot of information. He's an author and a molecular biologist. He releases an adventurous and thought-provoking new novel called Outbound Meta Mars, the second in a series of visionary science fiction. Wow. Set against an intrinsic imagination colonized Mars in the late 23rd century, Meta Mars centers on a growing conflict between human civilization and artificial sentient beings. Now, there's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Okay, so stay tuned for that, my friends. It's coming up.
And Douglas, sorry to interrupt, but we do have some questions actually. One question from This Too Shall Pass. So many cultures around the world celebrate October 31st. Why is Halloween so universal?
Well, it's not Halloween in faraway places. It's called the Day of the Dead. It's called ancestral worship, and it coincides with Halloween. For us who live in the West here and grew up with Halloween, it's somewhat surprising to find out that nobody else celebrates Halloween like we do. Halloween, trick-or-treating, pumpkins, goblins, and ghosts. That's primarily a North American holiday or custom. In other places, it's called the Day of the Dead. It's a celebration when people go to the cemeteries. They take flowers and they bring candles and they go to the gravesite of their relatives. Mom and dad, grandpa and grandma, great grandpa and great mama, and great great grandma and grandpa. And they pay them homage, they worship them. And so I kind of, when I've been in Spain and Poland, I've seen this when I happen to be there. And I like it. I like the idea that we should, as children, go back and know where we came from. You know, a generation or two or three or four or five. And in some of these places, family plots are there, and you can see your great 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 grandma and grandpa. And so that coincides with Halloween. And of course, it's a harvest time, and we're grateful. And so back in some organizations, in some places, some societies, there was the ceremony of gratitude to the nature spirits, you know, to the providers of the harvest. We were grateful that we would have the harvest, which would sustain us, the people, through the fall and winter months and into the spring, and we'd start all over again. So this idea of communicating with nature, this idea of Halloween being something of anticipating the spiritual world, and then the ancestral worship that goes throughout most of the countries, Latin America. I was in Mexico in a place called Como, and there were giant parades of 100 men lifting up a float with a biblical scene on it, and they walked for 5 kilometers around the village, and there were about 8, maybe 10 floats, and 100 men under each one. They would travel on foot, the 100 men holding up these very heavy floats, and they would go 300 or 400 yards and stop and have to rest, and they would do this for 5 kilometers in a big circle as a sign of their faith, as a sign of their dedication. And it was an interesting combination between the Catholic biblical religion, because remember, mostly the friars and the Catholic Church were prominent in those areas of the world, but also there was a little bit of the ancient worship of the Aztec, where they had skeleton costumes, and they had little boys dressed up like in little trees. There were wigs. They were cracking whips and throwing firecrackers. And that particular ceremony was to scare away the bad spirits, the evil spirits, if you will. And so I think Halloween is kind of similar, right? We're kind of making fun of the ghosts and goblins, get away. And remember,
Hmm.
the spiritual world, there are those kind of spooky people in the astral plane and whatnot, and we always want to chase them away. So,
Hmm.
in a roundabout way, I've just gone around the globe here. In India and other places, there are ceremonies of cleansing, of getting rid of the negativity, but not necessarily like Halloween or like the ceremonies of carrying floats, which in Spain they do the same. I've been there, gigantic parades and men carrying floats, 100 men at a time or more. So, what can we say it is? It's a renewal of the spirit. Again, tying it in with Jack's book, we don't forget the past and we should not forget our ancestors. How many of us know the names of our great grandparents or the origins of our great grandparents on our mother's side and our father's side? How many of us know the origins and the names of our great great grandparents? Well, thank God for Ancestry.com. You can find that out if you
That's
have,
right.
yeah. And maybe your religion, there are some religious organizations like the Latter-day Saints that keep track of your lineage. And it's very important. But do we really value it at this point in time? Some people do very seriously. And I think it's very important. My ancestry goes back to England in a place called Swindon in England. And the Cottrell name is very prominent in there. And my bragging a little bit about my family, we were close to King James. We had many Cottrell officials. The name is prominent in the exchequer and politics, mayoral candidates. And I learned that all from ancestral.com. So all the way back to the 1700s or beyond, maybe the 1500s. So I know where I came from.
Hmm.
And someday I've been to England, I've been to Manchester, I walked on the ground and I met some people. A lot of my friends I get along very well with people from England, although sometimes I can't understand their accent. So anyway, the bottom line is that we should know where we came from, all of us, as much as you can. And I just happen to be lucky that people have put this information in my family, much more scholarly than I am, and find out where we came from. Now my children, because their mother was French Canadian and from France, they have a whole other lineage, if you will, from France and things like that. So it's important to know where you come from. It helps you identify who you are, I guess, to some degree. But I see
Yeah.
myself as a man of the world. Like, I'm a citizen of the world, I should say. Not a man of the world, like I'm not a man about town. I said, I see myself as a citizen of planet Earth. And someday, sooner or later, maybe when we talk to Richard Anderson, we find out about his book. Remember, fiction always precedes reality, right? I mean,
Hmm.
when Arnold Schwarzenegger was talking about the Terminator and a whole race of mechanical beings that were sentient and like us, we have them now. We have robots that look like, well, they look like people. We have, anyway, well, that's another show. But we have little animals that look real cute and cuddly, and they're machines with fur on them. And I'm
Yeah.
not talking about little dollies. I'm talking about these are the ones that you can't tell the difference. So uh, next in the next show, when we talk to Richard, you're going to ask about that sentient beings that are robotic. This will be something for the storybooks. So you have another story? I hope that helps that questioner. You have another question?
Yes, we have a few more. Again, from This Too Shall Pass. Is there a karma law for death threats?
Of course. Did you want to know what it is?
Please do. Please do
Listen,
explain.
the law of karma. Karma is a system. It's a mechanism. So when some people say the law of karma, they don't really know what they're talking about, in the sense that karma is cause and effect. It's consequences to your actions, more exactly. The Buddhists would call it, there are consequences for your actions. So we could talk about this for a whole show, but it basically says when you make a remark to somebody like, "Oh, I hope they fall down and break a leg," or I hope they choke on that. I hope they, bad things happen to them. What you're really doing is you're starting on a path of murder. By wishing them something bad, you are to the nth degree wishing for their murder. Now, you don't really mean it that way. You just say, "I hope they choke on that sandwich," or, they stole it from you, or, you hope that they break a leg, or that shiny new car, well, I hope somebody scratches your car. Or when you say stuff aimlessly, like, "I don't like that person," like, "I'm going to call them up and make a threat," you are committing murder in a spiritual sense. Now, did you actually carry it out? No. But one of the great commandments, one of the great 10 commandments that we accept as spiritual guidance from Moses, the lawgiver, it says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor." And it goes on about coveting this and coveting that as well. Well, what is false witness? It's lying about somebody. It's just lying. Now, when you say something that's not, it's a rumor, or it's not right, it's a juicy little tidbit, you can't resist passing it on, you are breaking that law. That law is not a civil law, it's a spiritual law. So you are affecting yourself by telling a rumor, because as it says, what you give out, you shall receive. Karma is like a boomerang. I used to have an actual boomerang on our altar, and I used to hold it up in front of the congregation, and I would wave it, and I said, "Remember, when you're telling lies or rumors or doing bad things, as the roaster said, good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Keep that in your mind. But if you don't, that boomerang goes out and it comes back, and you don't see it coming. With the same force that you threw it out, it comes back." And that's what the justification for the law of karma is, or cause and effect, or consequences to what you're doing. Now, you're also supposed to say in the one of the commandments is, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." If you look at somebody and you're lusting after them, you've already committed adultery in your mind. Does anybody get punished for that? No. Is it good to look at beautiful people? Yes. Do you get seduced by the dark side? Do you let the devil in the door? That means, do you carry on? Keep lusting after somebody, etc. So those effects, this is what is meant by giving a death threat to somebody. Using those as examples, you are wishing yourself harm. You are wishing yourself death. You are wishing yourself terrible consequences. Just because you're unwise or foolish doesn't mean that you can evade the cause of effect and consequence. Here's a little tip, my friends. When you criticize somebody you talk about them and you're critical of them, you will come to need their help in very short order. You will come to need their assistance in short order after you've criticized them, after you've bereaved them, after you've said some bad things about them. Don't believe me? Just remember, and you'll see that the consequence of when you criticize somebody you know what a big jerk they are, and they're so this and that, and they're always talking and shooting their mouths off, or they don't know how to dress, or who do they think they are. Well, where the heck did I lost my keys. Where are they? Hey, Bill, can you help me find my keys? Oh, here they are. Thank you, Bill. And in your mind, you're going, all the things I just said about Bill. Oh my God, and look, he's helping me find my keys. That is awareness, and that is something you need to pay attention to, my friends. Good question. I hope I've explained it, but not overly so. But when you give a death threat to somebody, when you say something derogatory about anybody to their face in anger and hate, or behind their back, hypocritically, and like a stealthy way that you've done it, you're really going to pay for that. And I don't mean it like a loan getting paid. I mean, consequences are going to come back to you.
Yeah.
So here's the best. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Another spiritual rule means
Yes.
if Bill's a jerk, fine. He's a jerk. That's his way. He's an elephant. He looks like an elephant. He walks like an elephant. He's an elephant. Okay. I'm a gorilla. I walk like a gorilla. I talk like a gorilla. I'm a gorilla. We're different. So let the elephant be the elephant, let me be the gorilla. No problem. That's how life is supposed to be, learning how to get along and belong. And gorillas and elephants are buddies. They live in the same jungle. Who cares? One on the trees, one on the path. No problem. So if we can come to that point, all of us, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. Doesn't matter what your politics are. Doesn't matter what your religious beliefs are. Can you get along with each other? That is the Christ consciousness. That is practical spirituality. And that's how you avoid getting in deep, deep trouble by your own tongue. Your own tongue. Watch this steering wheel. It's a steering wheel of your soul.
Wow.
Just listen to what you're saying and look what happens to you. If you're on the social media and you can't wait to so-and-so's a such and such, and they're so-and-so, the Republicans this, the Democrats that, the so-and-so's this. You know what's going to happen to you? What you just put down. Because you put it into words, which is worse than just spitting out the vibration. That's why people who are on the social media, my humble opinion, are so angry, because they're spitting out anger all the time. And that wears you down, and you're full of poison, and you get sick. How to stop it? Shut up.
Shut up.
Stop texting and say, they're a gorilla. They're an orangutan. Pardon me to the gorilla and orangutan population out there. I'm not trying to insult you, my friends. You know, you all of the world. So, you know, if you can do that, you will be a wise, wise man, woman, child, old person, young person, whatever. What's the next one?
Thank you, Douglas. I really appreciate how you explained that. Wonderful examples too. The next question is, this is also from This Too Shall Pass. If this warning is ignored and crime committed, the criminal can tell God later, I warned him, but he did not listen.
Well,
does God make exceptions for this?
God doesn't do anything but provide for us. Get that through your spiritual noggins, my friend. God provides everything. What we do with it is up to us. We are co-creators. When you're reaching into somebody's pocket to steal their wallet, you know that's not right. And when you're cheating somebody out of money by calling them up and pretending to be a scammer, you know in your heart that's not right. You can justify it. You can say, oh, we're just taking the cream off the top. We're just skimming a little from those rich so-and-sos. But you know it's not right. When you push somebody out of the way, when you knock over a child, when you're putting children breaking into their house in the middle of the night like they did in South Chicago and putting children with zip ties, bare naked, out on the street separating from their parents, you've got to know, officers, that that's not right. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to your children or friends or children of friends. It's going to come back to haunt you. You know it's not right. So all the things, the bullying, the nastiness, the things that are going on now, if it's not loving, don't do it. You can be a policeman and you can be just. You obey the law, you uphold the law, and we need policemen. We need protection. But the policeman doesn't have to go and be mean or a bully or abuse their authority. By using their authority with wisdom, they fulfill the protection of us, the people who don't carry guns. And at the same time, they uphold the law, which is a noble, noble responsibility. And you ascend spiritually. On the other hand, if you abuse the authority, or if anybody knows that they're doing something wrong and they do it anyway, that's with a capital S, capital I, capital N. That's the worst kind of karma. Because now you have to correct yourself, and then you have to make restitution. Not only you regret and wipe out the debt, but now you have to make amends. You have to pay back, even to the point of your own life. You will have to give back. The law of Moses says an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. What does that mean? Well, that's not horrific, stuff, as I always thought when I was younger in Sunday school. It means exactly. The law of karma means what you give out comes back exactly, not one iota more or less. And so, as we move through this time of uncertainty, I hope I've answered the question. It's a matter that as you find yourself in a situation, you say, I'm being attacked, I'm defending my family, or I'm defending the neighborhood. I have to take somebody's life to defend them. No karma. You're doing your job. But if you go into a situation and you're looking to take somebody's life or to harm them or beat them up or do something bad to them, you're looking to do it, now you've gone past. And that karma, that cause and effect comes back. Think about it. The universe is a balanced place. We're going through this time of chaos, a time of teaching and testing time. Why? It's been predicted. The rapture, the end times. What's going to happen is all these souls that had to be loosened from hell or from the lower realms had to come into the world to stir it up, to change it, to do whatever they're doing. And after they're gone, they'll be put back into the spiritual prison which they came from, and the world will adjust and get on. It's kind of like a trial by fire. I don't like it. But for those of us who are the peacemakers of the world, you will not be harmed. God will provide. God provides everything. What we do with it. You are playing with our souls and we don't even know it. Got one more question?
No, I think that was it. Thank you so much, Douglas.
Okay, well, listen, everybody. We have some exciting guests coming up again in the near future. As I said, we have what did I say? We have Richard Anderson coming up. We have just a minute. I have a bit of a hit list here. We also have coming up Tom Lane, who's going to be talking about karma. Mary Medeiros is coming up with her new book, and we have some exciting shows coming up. And I want to tell everybody, Oz and I have been working along with Larry here. In November, we're going to change the day and the time of the show. Coming up in November, I think it's where we go again. Coming up in November, around the 7th of November, we'll be going to Fridays at 8:30 Pacific Coast time, and that is 11:30 East Coast time. And we're going to answer your questions, and we're going to get to the show. We're going to have a wonderful time. And again, this is part of our evolution taking place. But for the next few weeks, we have Monday shows with some exciting guests coming to us. And again, as we move forward in time, just to let everybody know again, we're going to be changing the time in November the 7th. And I'm trying to flick through some windows here as I'm doing this. Pardon me for appearing distracted. So as we do this, we're looking forward to your emails. We have behind me those wonderful, see those amazing soul cups, the Soul Report cup. They are fast becoming available, and so if you'd like to have one of those, feel free to let us know, and we'll see if we can get you one in the very near future. And of course, those are my books behind me. My website is douglasjamescottrell.com. That's how I make a living. Please buy my books. I'll even autograph them for free. And I'm sure if you make a request, Jack will do the best, if he can, get you an autographed copy as well. You might have to go and see him in person. That book is catching fire. It's selling well. And so, no pun intended, no volcanic actions and stuff like that. But, our heart goes out to those people in the Gaza Strip tonight. Part of the news report was to mention that it looks like we're this far away from the hostages going home back to their loved ones, and some sort of tenuous peace happening in the Gaza Strip. So let our prayers be for the powers to be, that the hostages will indeed right now as we speak, in the next little while, are released and they can go home. And those who have passed away, that they'll also find their way back home to their families. This is our prayer. Now, this is going to take a lot of healing and a lot of wisdom, and it's going to be a tenuous piece, but let's hope that wisdom prevails. I just feel so sorry for all the innocent people there, and the people who are going through this man-made starvation, and those people who have suffered needlessly, the children especially. Let's hope that we can get past this point right now. This full moon is a time, right now it's full moon out there, it's a time for things to change. So stay with us, my friends, and we'll see you here right here on the Soul Report Live next Monday at 7 p.m. live. And you can catch the show, and you can also find other interviews on the Wake Up that we have on our podcast as part of this one. I'll be back too. Yes, Larry, you got something else to say before we close?
Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and thank you, Douglas, and thanks to Jack also. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Okay. So again, thank you for being with us today on the Soul Report. If this conversation stirred something within you, inspired thought, or made you feel good, then our mission is already fulfilled. But there's so much more to explore together, so many voices to hear and stories to uncover, that light can only illuminate your spiritual journey. If you enjoyed today's show's episode, please take a moment to subscribe. It's very important that you subscribe to the Soul Report on YouTube, Shopify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. And remember, my Wake Up podcast is available as well. Click the notification bell, follow the button, click on that. You'll never miss another moment of insightful healing and transformation. I hope I've been helpful to you, my friends. It's my mission to coach you, to help you a little bit, along with my friend Jack Bialik, who's a very intelligent man who's well versed in his his experiences in the world. He's a very devout Christian, as I am, and we together hope to see you right here on the Soul Report. If not, check out our Many Mansions Spiritual Center services, which are also on the Hope Conference's website. Your voice matters. Remember that. Your support helps us grow this global soul family, one heart at a time. Until next time, be well. I wish you peace and prosperity. Remember, we're all connected. We're all on the same path individually and together. May God bless you, and may you have wonderful, prosperous things this week. God bless, my friends. Good night.
Are you searching for clarity, guidance? Are you searching